Reiki is a healing energy and a system that has been around since the late 1800s as we know it today. However, the energy itself and this healing modality is a very ancient energy. It's something that has always been there that people have been able to tap into. As we look at Reiki today, the story begins with Dr. Mikao Usui. Dr. Usui was born in Japan in 1865, and as he grew up, he was fascinated with different gurus and different spiritual masters who had been able to heal physically, such as Jesus or such as the Buddha. He was fascinated with their ability to heal people both in their presence as well as away from them. And he was very curious about this. So as Dr. Usui grew up, he studied a great deal of spirituality and tried to learn how people were able to tap into this healing. In his travels and in his studies, he read various scriptures, various holy books, and learned a great deal. When he had studied for several years and had been working as a businessman on the side, working in the government, doing his daily work, he continued his spiritual activities and his spiritual research to try and find the source of this great healing power. Well, at one point, Dr. Usui was studying with a monk in Japan, and he had been studying for so many years, he got to the point where he was ready to just receive it or be done. So he told his monk friend, this teacher that he was going to go up to Mount Kurama, a holy mountain in Japan, and he was going to do a 21-day study where he would meditate and fast, and he decided that he was either going to get the answer that he had studied and searched for his entire life, or he was going to die trying. So he went up to this mountain and he gathered 21 rocks and sat them by him in a pile. Every day Dr. Usui sat there and meditated and tried to find the meaning of this healing ability. And each day he would mark the day by taking one of the rocks and throwing it to the side. So every day he sat in meditation. He prayed, he meditated, he worked with spirit to try and gain this information. And at the end of the day, he picked up a rock and threw it to the side. Well, day after day, Dr. Usui sat in meditation, and it came until the very last day when he had one rock left. And he had not received the information yet. And so he sat in meditation, and he sat there on this mountaintop looking out, and suddenly he saw a bright light in the distance, and he saw it approaching him. And for a second he decided, he wondered what he ought to do with this, if he ought to duck and cover, or what he ought to do. And he decided that he was going to stand there and allow whatever needed to happen to happen. He was ready to receive whatever needed to happen. So this light approached and came closer and closer and finally entered right into him, and he was knocked unconscious. And as he was unconscious, he was shown various symbols that he had found in his studies, in these searchings of all the different holy books. He had seen different symbols, and many of these were shown to him. When Dr. Usui woke up, he had been given the information of certain of these symbols and how to use them for healing. He had been given the answer that he had searched for so many years. Well, of course, Dr. Usui was excited. This had been years and years, his entire life he had studied this, and he finally had his answer. So he got up and he started to run down the mountain, so excited to get back and tell his teacher about his experience. So as he was running down the mountain, in his haste, he tripped and stubbed his toe. He knelt down. It was all bloody and painful, and he knelt down, and naturally, we touch ourselves when we get hurt. He knelt down and he put his hands over his toe, and after a little bit, just a few seconds, he noticed that the pain was gone, and he removed his hands and the toe had completely healed. So this is the first of what we call the 4 Reiki miracles. Dr. Usui then continued down the mountain. He got to the base of the mountain where there was a little village, and he went into a restaurant because it had been 21 days. He'd been fasting and meditating, and he was hungry. So he went into the restaurant to order a meal, and he ordered this huge meal. He picked absolutely anything he could think of to order so that he could eat. Well, the restaurant owner, being based at the bottom of a sacred mountain, was familiar with people who would go up to do a pilgrimage and would be fasting for days and for weeks. And he knew that that's not healthy for the body then to come down and break a fast with such a vast amount of food. So he talked with Dr. Usui and encouraged him not to eat so much that it would make himself sick, and just eat a little bit of light food. And Dr. Usui insisted. He said, "Nope, bring me the food, I'll be fine." So he brought him all the food, and he ate this great big meal, and he was perfectly healthy. It didn't upset him at all. And so that is the second of the Reiki miracles. The third Reiki miracle occurred when Dr. Usui noticed this restaurant owner's granddaughter. She was there, and she had an abscessed tooth. She had a great deal of pain in it. And so with permission, Dr. Usui touched her tooth, touched the side of her, and the abscess was healed. So that's the third Reiki miracle. The fourth Reiki miracle occurred when Dr. Usui then finished his meal, continued on his way, and returned to his teacher. He got to the monastery where he had been living and working with this guru, and found that his teacher had fallen ill. So he cleaned himself up, and he went back in to speak with his teacher. And as he spoke with him, he demonstrated this healing ability, and he was able to heal his teacher. So these are the 4 Reiki miracles. It's very interesting to note the pattern of these miracles. The first 2 miracles, Dr. Usui worked on himself. He worked on healing himself. The third miracle, he then worked on a child. And the fourth, he worked on his own teacher. It's an interesting thing as we get into Reiki, and as we start walking a path of Reiki, the progression that we learn. We begin working on ourselves. We begin clearing up and cleaning out and raising ourselves in our own energy. And as we do this, we're able to become a more pure and clear channel so that then we can more effectively work with others. We're more effectively able to partner with the Reiki energy. And we also gain a little bit more confidence as we work with it. And then we are ready that we feel like we can work on others, and we pick people who are typically safe for us. Someone that we feel that we could work with who, like Dr. Usui working with this child, typically we would see the child being in a lesser status than an adult who had studied and had all these years of experience and knowledge and work and everything. And that was where the third miracle came. That's where we oftentimes feel ready to go ahead and work on safe people. And we do that for a little while, and then as we get to know the energy better and we get to know ourselves better, we realize that we can also work on those that we would never have thought to do anything with. We can work, as Dr. Usui did, on his own teacher, on someone who he would have put on a higher status than himself. A beautiful thing about Reiki and walking the Reiki path is the empowerment, and how much we get to know ourselves and we get to know the truth of energy and the truth of who we are and who others are as we walk the path. So, those are the 4 Reiki miracles. After this time, Dr. Usui went out and he began to live in a poor area of Kyoto. and he worked with the homeless, and he worked with those who were sick. And they came to him, and he offered them for free healing. He offered them this Reiki energy. And they were so grateful, and all of these healings occurred. However, after a while, Dr. Yusui noticed that the same people ended up coming back to him with the same issues that they had already been healed of at one point. He became very frustrated and a bit despondent with it, because if this healing was to occur, he wanted it to be something that wasn't just a Band-Aid, but something that actually truly healed the person. And so he decided to, again, go into retreat and go into meditation. And in his meditation, he realized that people were not valuing the energy, that it was going in to get a Band-Aid, and there was nothing that they had changed about their own lives. The energy that we hold has so much to do with our experiences that if we don't go to that root source, if we don't go to the energy, then we're just putting Band-Aids on the symptoms. And we can heal them temporarily, and then they eventually return. So Dr. Yusui came out of his meditation with the Reiki principles. And these principles are listed in your manual, and you'll learn some more about them later. However, the essential principles are: just for today, do not anger. Just for today, do not worry. Treat others with respect and honor. Do all your work honestly. And show gratitude for all that you have, for all of your blessings. So Dr. Yusui began to teach these principles as well as provide this healing energy. And that's what began to truly shift people's lives and allow the energy to have a more profound and whole healing of the individual. So Dr. Yusui began to teach others, and one of the individuals that he taught is Dr. Hayashi. And you can find information on Dr. Hayashi in your manual, as well as Dr. Yusui and all of their stories. But Dr. Hayashi came to him and was attuned by Dr. Yusui to learn how to work with this energy, to connect with the Reiki energy. Dr. Hayashi worked with Dr. Yusui and set up a Reiki clinic. He set up a healing clinic to begin working more with people. Dr. Yusui, when he worked with individuals, did not have the standard hand positions. He didn't use the standard hand positions that we use today, nor did Dr. Hayashi. Dr. Hayashi studied and took clinical notes of everyone that he worked on and came up with all of these notes of different positions and different techniques to utilize the Reiki energy for healing certain diseases. Dr. Hayashi also is thought to have added the master symbol to the system. Dr. Yusui used the first 3 symbols that you'll eventually learn if you continue on in the Reiki tradition. Dr. Hayashi is thought to have added the 4th symbol, the master symbol. Dr. Hayashi, at his clinic, taught others, of course, and attuned others to Reiki, as well as did Dr. Yusui. And that's when we get to our 3rd person in our lineage and in the history of Reiki.